Hey guys! Right now, I'll tell you why you need to start working with chunks to get better results from your English lessons. First, let's figure out what chunks are. So, there are two terms we need to understand: chunks and collocations. The basic answer is that these are words that are often used together. So, let's take a look at some collocations. So, when two words are often used together, we call them collocations. For example, we say to work hard. We don't usually say to work difficultly, for example. We also say to make a difference, not to do a difference. When we think that there is a low chance of something, we don't really say that there is an unlikely chance or anything of that sort. We go with low and chance. We put those two words together. And if there is like a little bit more certainty that something is not going to happen, we just say that it's highly unlikely that it will happen. It would kind of be odd to say something like, it's strongly unlikely or it's certainly unlikely. So collocations are usually two words that we put together quite often. Some expressions have more words, and so we don't usually refer to them as collocations. So for example, when you don't understand something, you can say, I don't get it. So we wouldn't really say, I can't get it in this situation. We also wouldn't typically say, I'm not getting it. We would go with, I don't get it. These specific words put together in this specific way. Here's another example. You can say, how are you? Or you can go with, how's it going? When I ask a person this question, I don't need to put together these words in the correct way in my mind. I don't need to think about all the grammar that goes into this expression. I just have this sentence ready in my head and I'm ready to use it when I need it. So, say I see a person that I want to strike a conversation with, and I go, how's it going? Or let me give you another example that you might be more familiar with.
Hey, how you doing?
It's not even grammatically correct to put it like this. We technically should say something like, how are you doing? But language in real life and in textbooks, it's quite often different. And there's no way to explain from the grammar point of view why we say it specifically like this. So all you can do is just accept it and kind of use it if you want to. Now, what's the difference between the two? The main difference between chunks and collocations is that collocations are often used together without much grammar put into it. And chunks are groups of words that have some grammar as well. So, for example, in the phrase I don't get it, we use present simple and the helping verb do because it is a negative sentence. And that's what we do in present simple when we make a negative sentence when we already have a verb, in this case, get. You may not be at the level yet where you understand why this is like this, but you can already start using it, which is kind of amazing. For you as a learner, this difference between chunks and collocations is largely irrelevant, as long as you know what to do with them to improve your English. So just to make it a little bit easier for you, I'm going to refer to all of them as chunks. Now the question is, why bother? It took me quite a while to put this together because there's just so many reasons that you really want to start working with chunks. So I tried to put together the most significant ones. Let's take a look at them. So the first reason is that with chunks, you'll become fluent faster. Think of two puzzles. The final result is the same size, the same shape, and the pictures are identical. But now imagine that the first image has 200 pieces. The first puzzle has 200 pieces. And the second one has 1,000. Which one is going to be easier to put together? Probably the one that the toddler will have an easier time with, the one with huge pieces. So it kind of works the same way. It is easier to process bigger units of information, chunks, than smaller ones, separate words. Note that, of course, I'm not saying that chunks will make it possible to learn English in a month or stuff like that. It's not a magic pill, but you can certainly become fluent faster if you use your time and effort more efficiently. And that's what this is about. You can think about it this way. Think about your house and your favorite grocery store. Different routes to that grocery store take a different amount of time. They're pretty much always ways that you wouldn't normally even consider. Why drive around the city for a long time for much longer than you need to? So it works the same way with chunks. Not working with chunks is like taking the longer route. It's still possible. It's just, it doesn't make sense. The difference is that Google Maps can pretty much say something like, "What are you doing, dumbass? This route is 20 minutes longer." And there's no one desperately trying to lie to you and sell you a longer route. However, if you Google something like best ways to learn English, you'll definitely find a lot of nonsense. A bunch of not particularly useful apps, lists, tips. And, it may be a lot less obvious that those things are not going to help much. There's no map for that. Now, let's move on to the second point. The second reason focusing on chunks is essential is because learning chunks will boost your confidence. I do realize how cliche this sounds, but if you learn a word in English without context, there's a million ways that things can go incorrectly. Hold on. Should I say things can go wrong? Things can go incorrectly or wrong? Which one is it? Well, this is one of those situations. We don't really say things can go incorrectly. Why? No reason. We just don't say it like that. We say things can go wrong. So if you learn words go wrong incorrectly, it doesn't mean that you'll be able to use them the right way when you actually need them. So on top of taking the extra time to think about the sentence, you might also hesitate. Is this how I say it? Is this correct? Is this the right word? So learning and, of course, remembering things can go wrong or a lot can go wrong takes away that pressure and makes you more confident as a result. This is not to say, of course, that it's the end of the world if you make mistakes. No, not at all. But many people wish to improve to the point where they're confident, and whether or not this is reasonable to be afraid of mistakes, many people are. So being able to avoid such mistakes will make you a hell of a lot more confident. The third reason is that chunks expose you to words in context. And very often, you also learn the connotation of a word. That is like its extra meaning. So, for example, is this phrase, a word, formal or informal? Do kids, adults, or both say it? Is it rude, polite, or neutral? And so on. All of this, of course, is possible if you know what to look for when you're working with chunks. More on that later. Here's an example. Stop being such a bitch, Nancy. If a guy says this at work, it's really inappropriate. It's obvious that you shouldn't be using this kind of language at work. But many situations are a lot more subtle. So let's take a few examples. Let's take a look at a few examples. When I worked in China, my boss, this 45-year-old woman, she would always talk about her mom and say, "Mommy, my mommy, this and that." And it always felt really weird. And the reason is because the word mommy is something that a child uses, not an adult. She could have said something like a mom or a mother, but she didn't. And every time everyone was like, "Okay." um, let's take a look at one more example. So, what's wrong with this one? Say you learn the expression get it, and you ignore its connotation. So, you learn that it means do you understand? But you ignore when and with who it's okay to use it. So say you're talking to your boss and you're like, get it? And it gets really awkward because it's way too informal. Next thing you know, this happens to you.
Okay, you know what? Let's just agree to disagree, my friend. Okay. What?
Reason number 4 for using chunks is that they force you to think in English. Imagine a friend comes over to your place and you say this: please feel single to use anything you need. Make yourself at home. This is a mistake that's been made by more than one of my students. It's actually sort of common. So what happens here is that they substitute the word free, as in the phrase feel free to do something, for single. It looks just like a Google Translate mishap, but it isn't. So things tend to happen when a person translates something in their head from their native language into English word by word. And it's not always possible. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. Now let's do what is called a selective attention test. I'm going to show you a video where two teams, one wearing black, the other one in white, pass a basketball. Your job is to count how many passes the team in white makes. Only the team in white. Do not count the passes made by the team in black. Okay, let's start.
This is a test of selective attention. Count how many times the players wearing white pass the basketball. How many passes did you count? The correct answer is 15 passes. But did you see the gorilla?
Same way if you're a passenger in a car, especially if you don't even own a driver's license, you're a lot less likely to pay attention to the road and know how to get from one place to another. The reason is very simple. It's not necessary for you to pay attention to that information, and your brain has to prioritize what is really more important. It already has to deal with a bunch of different things. So why would it pay attention to things that are not really crucial? That's of course not to say that if you want to pay attention, you can't. You can, and your chance of remembering the route is going to increase if you actively pay attention. And this leads us to the reason number 5. Working with chunks forces you to pay attention to things that really matter in learning English. So learning chunks makes you pay attention to things like, to the chunks and their components like prepositions, articles, whether the noun is countable or uncountable, and so on. It makes you more active with the vocabulary that you're learning. Let me give you a few examples. Usually when I make a to-do list, I make sure to divide it into bite-sized chunks. So from this sentence, you can learn the following information. Bite-sized is an adjective because it describes a noun, in this case, chunks. It can be used to describe chunks. So you get the phrase bite-sized chunks or something. You can also divide something into chunks. Just learning words divide, bite-sized, into, and chunks separately sure as hell is not going to explain to you that it's okay to put this phrase together like this. It will not guarantee that you'll be able to actually use those words. Now let's check out one more example and see what else we can learn by focusing on chunks instead of separate words. Let's look at this situation. One person is upset, the other one is sorry. The first person who's sorry says, "Damn, I forgot to book the hotel. Sorry." And the second person is like, "Oh, you dropped the ball on this one." So here you can see that this expression to drop the ball is informal and it can be used by friends. You can also see from the context that it's not very rude. It's not like you really fucked up. It's milder. You can also notice that you can add a preposition after it. So is it to drop the ball of something or at something? No, it's on something. Now, why did we say you dropped the ball? Is it a very specific ball that you dropped? Why not say a ball? I'm sure that most of you probably know most of the rules related to the use of a, an, and the. Like if you're talking about something very specific, you're going to use the. For example, if I say the gym I go to is near my house, it's clear that I'm not talking about some gym. I'm talking about a very specific gym that is near my house. Then let's say there is a bunch of bananas on the table. And you're going to say, "Hey, could you pass me a banana?" As in one of those bananas. You're not going to say the banana. I mean, unless you are really, you really have your eye on one specific, most beautiful and delicious banana, which is fine. Whatever works for you. But normally you'd say, "Can you pass me a banana?" A lot of these rules work in a lot of different situations, but not in all of them. And it happens more often than you can imagine that those rules can't explain why we use a, an, or the. Let's take a look at another example. So the phrase "to tie the knot" means to get married. It's crucial that you say "to tie the knot," though. You can't say "to tie a knot." I mean, you can, but that's what you're going to get. So it's a completely different meaning. The difference between tying a knot and tying the knot is huge. But rules on the use of a, an, and the are not really going to explain to you why that is. Obviously, you're not going to get this information if you just learn the words tie and knot separately. And yeah, don't get me wrong. You still need to know what those words mean separately, but it's just not enough. Learning these phrases as chunks makes sense. So to recap, if you learn vocabulary in English through chunks, this will help you to become fluent faster. It will help you boost your confidence. Instead of just learning the words and their meaning, you will also learn the extra meaning, like when is it okay to use them? Is this phrase formal or informal? And stuff like that. It also forces you to think in English, which means there will be less situations where you translate word by word and make a mistake. And it will help you to develop the ability to pay attention to the right things. Now, if you want me to make another video explaining how to actually use chunks, how to work with them, please let me know in the comments below. And if a lot of people want me to make such a video, I'll work on it. I really hope that this was useful and that at least one person will be like, maybe I should start working with chunks. Bye-bye.